won't shit out. It seems to be good so far. I haven't tried it with a heavy load like we are tonight. It looks like it's going well. I'm going to have to let you keep an eye on the chat room, though.
Okay. I've got it pulled up on my second monitor, so...
Yeah, everything's running a little bit slow right now. Let me just...
It'll be something that we have to work with, but it's all...
I mean, it seems to be doing good. It's just my computer's running a bit slow for some reason. And why will this not go away? Go away, go away. Just go away. Oh, that's going to drive me nuts.
Let's see. Get my other windows pulled up.
Let me make sure all of my settings are still good. I gotta bring that volume up.
Do you want to test out the sound effects?
Yeah, let's see. Still working.
Cool.
I was worried that all my settings were going to get messed up from the move, but everything seems to be okay. Gotta make sure all my levels are up. Let's see, you got this. All right, we got
Neat.
that. Good. We are good to go. I'm ready to go if you are. Oh,
yep,
I guess I got the notes up. Do you want to take the first?
Yeah, you want me to do 1 and 3, and you do 2?
Sure.
Okay.
All right.
That works for me.
Sounds good.
Hopefully, my voice holds out.
Well, if it goes out, I'll pick it up.
Okay.
All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Do you like this show and want to help support us? Do you want us to stay ad-free? Do you want extra episodes every month? Well, then head over to patreon.com/nerdcaveretro and become a Patreon supporter of this very show. Greetings, programs. I am back in the saddle again for another episode of the Nerd Cave Retro Show. My name is Jason Robbins.
And my name is Derek Diamond.
So, Derek, thank you for taking the helm again last week. Everything, the last couple of weeks have been absolute batshit crazy for me. I had to take last week off because I couldn't get my setup ready in time. Plus, I didn't have any time to play Metroid like I wanted to. If you can see behind me, if you're a regular watcher of the YouTube video, or if you watch us on Twitch, you can see I have some different surroundings behind me. I'm in a new apartment. I have started off 2019 with a brand new slate, so we're gonna see how this year goes for me. Hopefully it'll be better than 2018. So, Derek, what have you been up to lately?
Well, I've been sick the last couple of days, which is good that I wasn't sick last week, because I don't think I would have been able to talk for 30 to 45 minutes by myself. Yeah. But no, it's just that time of year where, sickness is going around with the weather changing and whatnot. And long story short, it's mostly been dealing with a sore throat, which is perfect for podcasting. I did an interview for my other show last night, and up until about 5 minutes before I called the guy, my throat was hurting like really badly. And when we started, miraculously, I was fine through the majority of the interview. And as soon as it was over, I just crashed. And for some reason, I woke up at like 2:30 this morning and just felt awful and couldn't go back to sleep. Finally went back to sleep around 5-ish, and then woke up at 8 and was like, yeah, I'm not going into work today. So called out, laid in bed most of the morning, took a really long hot bath, and then spent most of the afternoon laying on my couch. So hopefully it'll get better. Been eating soup mostly for the last couple of days and just drinking a lot of water. And as you can see, for those who are watching the YouTube version, some hot tea. So
yes. Well, I hope you feel better soon, my friend. I know there's some crud floating around that everybody's been getting sick. Luckily, I haven't gotten it. So,
yeah, and surprisingly, no one else at work has been sick. So, and I haven't really been around anybody that has been sick. So I don't know where I picked it up from, but I'm sure you might remember this, but I haven't been sick since I went to, I guess now 2 years ago, to Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah.
when I lost my voice for 4 days, because I remember the day before we were doing the show, I texted you. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do the show, and you're like, why not? Because I can't talk.
Yeah, I think we didn't we put the show off for a few days or something like that. I don't remember.
Oh, we were able to do it on time. I got my voice back the day that we recorded the show.
That's scary.
I know. That's why I was like, yeah, we might have to come up with a backup plan. But
yeah,
it sucked. I mean, granted, I don't talk that much anyway, like outside of this podcast, but not being able to physically do it for multiple days sucks.
Yeah. Well, if you hear some strange noises coming from the room, like I was telling Derek, the new apartment I have, I just have this open upstairs bedroom, and I have no way to keep the cats out. So, like I did at my house. So, because there's no door. So, if you see a cat jump behind my head, then that's Luke. He's a little black cat with a nubby tail. I named him after Luke Skywalker. Yes, I'm a nerd.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's funny because we both have new setups too. For those who are watching the video version, I've got I had my aunt and cousin came over and put up this brick wallpaper along with the sound panels that I have all across the room. And I actually have two directly in front of me. So hopefully the audio sounds just a little bit better.
It does sound good. Looks like you're about to bust out a stand-up set against the brick wall back there.
Say again?
Said it looks like you're about to bust out like a stand-up set.
For the listener's sake, I will never do that. You don't want to hear my stand-up routine.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm ready to talk about some retro gaming news for this week.
Sure. So our first story comes to us from Kotaku.com. Soon you'll be able to play Duck Hunt on modern TVs.
Weird.
The NES Zapper light gun peripheral is an unfortunate victim of the relentless march of technology rendered inoperable on modern flat-screen televisions. Retro console and peripheral maker Hyperkin aims to solve that problem with the Hyper Blaster HD and NES light gun for the modern age. The Zapper doesn't work on modern TVs because the technology Nintendo used to create it relied on the dependable timing of old-school cathode ray tube televisions, or CRT.
Yeah.
Instead of actually shooting anything, the Zapper is a light sensor. When the trigger is pulled while playing Duck Hunt, Hogan's Alley, or any of the handful of Zapper-compatible games, the TV screen goes black for a single frame, then any viable targets on the screen appear as white boxes for another frame, before the game goes back to rendering as normal. If the Zapper detects the white boxes within the center of its sensor array, it registers a hit. So long story short, modern TVs don't have that technology.
Yeah.
And this Hyper Blaster HD will change that. I think this is really cool for those who want to play the old school Duck Hunt on like an actual NES on a modern TV.
Yeah, because I mean, I have several copies of Duck Hunt and Hogan's Alley, and I can't play them because, you know, I'm still using a flat screen CRT television, but it's not the old tube television type, so I can't use the Zapper on it because it's basically one of the CRT televisions that was the middle between the old school CRT televisions and the flat screens we have now. So I still can't use the light gun on it, but as soon as this comes out, I'm getting it because I love playing Hogan's Alley.
It's just one of those cool collectible things that, you know, if I had an NES, I'd definitely get this.
Oh yeah, and you can't unless you have an old school CRT television, you can't play The Adventures of Bayou Billy either because there was a lot of light gun use in that game.
Yep.
So
this is cool. A cool little invention.
Yeah. And our next story, let's see, from Eurogamer.net. Console modding can now land you a prison sentence in Japan. What could cost you £36,000 and up to 5 years in prison time, modding a console in Japan, following a change in Japan's unfair competition prevention law in December. Game save editors and console modding services are now illegal. According to a translation by Siliconera, the law seems to be targeted primarily at those distributing modding tools, along with those selling product keys without the software maker's permission. The official punishment is a fine of up to 5 million yen or 5 years in jail, and in worst case scenarios, both. Changing the law has already ended the sale of several popular save editor tools. The CyberSave editor, for instance, allowed users to access patch codes for games such as God of War, GTA 5, and Monster Hunter World, giving players access to a variety of cheats. But this goes on to say the modding micro consoles such as the NES, SNES, and PS Classic are no longer permitted, while cheat cartridges like Action Replay can no longer be sold. So what do you think about not being able to mod your console in Japan? Do you think this sort of law is going to spread to European countries in the West?
It's definitely a possibility. I'm surprised that this wasn't already a thing.
Yeah, I have a sneaky suspicion that Nintendo might be a little bit behind this.
Yeah.
And if they are, this could easily spread to the United States.
Oh, absolutely. No, like I said, it's something that I kind of assumed was already a thing, so I didn't think that much of it.
Well, I know that modding consoles and selling them with, ROMs and stuff like that are frowned upon already, but there's really not too much legally they can do. I mean, I'm not. I don't know how they, because that's the thing. Like, you go on eBay and stuff, and you see all these consoles that have all these games on there. There's ways that people can get around it by selling these consoles, but I think if they really wanted to, the game companies could approach Congress and put some sort of law into place to stop those practices and close up those loopholes that the modders are using.
Could be an interesting story to follow through this year.
It's kind of weird. It's kind of scary. I mean, not that I mod anything, but I've thought about it before.
Well, and to kind of go off of that, it should be one of those things, and it's almost a moot point because the classic consoles that Nintendo did aren't being published anymore.
Yeah.
But if you're going to outlaw modding, then come up with a system similar to what we talked about, where you can actually plug your console into a computer and download new games onto it. And then you pay like a small fee.
Yeah, I don't know why they haven't done that yet, or maybe they are. I don't know, but that just seems like the most sensible solution to everything. Give people what they want, and they will stop stealing. I mean, look at what happened with the music industry. Music industry was freaking out at the turn of the century because of Napster and all that stuff, and they tried going after people, prosecuting people for stealing MP3s and stuff like that. And then here comes Apple with iTunes, and it pretty much stopped it in its tracks. So that should tell you right there, just give people what they want and it will stop. Yep,
that's all you have to do. And our last story comes to us from techspot.com. This cartridge turns your old Game Boy into a wireless controller. This is actually a really cool article. Let's see. I'm of the opinion that the best retro game controllers are the originals. There's simply no better way to experience classics as they were intended than to play them on the original hardware they were designed for. Unfortunately, that often means sacrificing modern conveniences or modifying retro hardware, but with this nifty device, you don't have to do either. Alex from Inside Gadgets managed to create a custom Game Boy cartridge that acts as a wireless transmitter. Together with a receiver, you can play games across a wide array of platforms, including the Super Nintendo and GameCube, using your Game Boy as a wireless controller. You can pick up a pre-made cartridge for $23 from Inside Gadgets, or by following the instructions posted online, attempt to build your own. I'd personally opt to just buy a pre-assembled version, considering my electronics and coding skills are lacking. You'll also need receivers Those can also be purchased from Inside Gadgets or gathered separately. This is really, really cool.
I know it is, isn't it?
And there's a video of this guy basically playing Super Mario Land on his laptop using the Game Boy as a controller.
I know, that's awesome.
This is really cool, and for only $23, that's not bad.
I know, and he's actually using a Game Boy Advance to do it too. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Yeah, because the original Game Boy games were still compatible with the Game Boy Advance, I believe. So
you can pick up Game Boy Advances for pretty cheap these days too.
Yeah, I haven't played a Game Boy Advance in forever. Oh, I remember the original version of the Game Boy Advance still didn't have the backlit screen. So my uncle actually found this tutorial online where he actually assembled like a little backlight and put it inside the Game Boy.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I had a backlit original Game Boy Advance, which was really cool.
That's awesome. He's pretty ingenious.
Yeah, it's but this is a cool thing, and I watched the video a little bit before we started, and this is something I would get.
I think it'd be cool to use an actual original Game Boy for that too.
Yeah, for sure.
But let's go ahead and move into this month in video game history, shall we? In January of 1981, Atari Computer Magazine Analog Computing begins 9 years of publication. Most issues include at least one basic game and one machine language game. I don't remember this game magazine at all. Do you?
Mm-mm. Interesting.
Yeah.
A computer magazine devoted to the Atari 8-bit home computer line. Yeah, which, I mean, the Atari was a little bit before my time, so I know little to nothing about the Atari other than what we've discussed and learned, through doing this segment. But still, it's not surprising that there was a magazine dedicated to the Atari.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Nintendo had theirs. I think PlayStation even had one.
Yep.
Back in the early PlayStation days.
I miss magazines.
I do too. The two magazines I looked forward to the most were Nintendo Power and Electronic Gaming Monthly.
Yes, those were my two.
Every single month.
Yep.
In January of 1982, Sega releases Zaxxon, which introduces isometric graphics and looks far more 3D than any other raster game at the time.
I remember Zaxxon. It's got that very Tron-looking font to it.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Even the graphics from the game remind me a little bit of Tron.
It's it was a very fun game. I remember playing this a lot in the arcades when I was a kid. This was always kind of a staple of the arcades, was Zaxxon.
Mm-hmm.
Also in January of 1982, January 13th, Midway releases Miss Pac-Man, despite it being copyrighted as 1981. It is, as the name suggests, a sequel to Pac-Man, but was created without Namco's authorization. They also released Baby Pac-Man and Pac-Man Plus without Namco's authorization later in the year. The former is a pinball video game hybrid. If I remember the story correctly, it was Midway. Of course it was Midway. It was Midway that released Miss Pac-Man, but it was so popular that I think Namco just sort of let them go with it, but still kept Midway's name on it, but it was sort of like a partnership because it was so popular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Miss Pac-Man is just as, if not even more iconic than the original Pac-Man.
I think it's more. Like, did I ever tell you about the Instagram account I wanted to start, where I was going to go to pizzerias around the United States, and I have a theory that there's a Miss Pac-Man machine in every pizzeria across the United States?
You did mention that, yeah. That would be awesome.
I'm not kidding. Every single pizzeria you go into, there's a Miss Pac-Man machine. Everywhere.
No, there's something right about seeing an arcade machine in any type of pizza restaurant.
I love it.
It just feels right.
Yes.
Let's see. In January of 1985, Konami releases Yi Ar Kung Fu, which lays the foundations for modern fighting games.
Let's take a look at Yi Ar Kung Fu. I do. I never played this, but I remember seeing them talking about this on the Video Game Years, which if you have not seen yet, is on Amazon Prime, and it's excellent.
I recognize the cover art, but I never played the game.
That is 80s as hell.
Mm-hmm. That it is.
Well, what were you saying?
I was just saying that it is.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to have a poster of that. Let's see. January 1st of 1992, Dune 2 is released by Westwood Studios, creating the template for the modern real-time strategy genre. Dune 2. Frank Herbert's Dune? Yet?
That title sounds really familiar.
The Building of a Dynasty, titled Dune 2 Battle for Arrakis in Europe, and Dune, The Battle for Arrakis in North American Mega Drive Genesis. I did not know this was put out on the Genesis.
So apparently there was a movie called Dune.
Oh, yeah. You never seen Dune?
Mm-mm.
Oh, my God, dude. You have got to see Dune.
Well, funny story, I was actually reading this today. The movie's being remade,
Yes.
and Dave Bautista, who plays Drax in Guardians, is going to star in it.
Oh, really? I did not know that. I'm even more excited for that now.
Yeah, I read about that actually earlier today.
The movie, it came out in the early 80s, and I can't remember who was it. Let me look this up real quick before let me go to IMDb.
So Wally doesn't correct us.
Yeah, so he doesn't correct me. It had, what's his name? Kyle MacLachlan. You know,
Oh,
Kyle
from
MacLachlan
Twin Peaks.
Yeah, from Twin Peaks. And it was directed by David Lynch, who also did Twin Peaks and, of course, Eraserhead, all those kind of movies. It's strange, and it's... I don't know if for modern sensibilities, like, it was a hard watch at the time, but if you're into sci-fi, then you're going to enjoy it. But it is very dated and very 80s and strange, so I'll just say that. But it is worth watching. I highly recommend that you take the time one weekend and just give it a watch.
Did Kyle MacLachlan find a damn fine cup of coffee?
I'm sure he did. Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah. And to close us out on this month in video game history, on January 15th, 1992, Mega Man 4 is released in the United States.
Love me some Mega Man. As a matter of fact, I did get Mega Man 11, and I'm about halfway done with it. I'm through most of the bosses, but I don't know how much further I have. But I do want to review it as soon as I'm done, and I'm going to save that for next month.
I had a feeling, I think I even mentioned it last week, that you had got the game and figured you would at least give your initial thoughts on it.
Well,
so.
I did. I stopped playing it because I'm having a lot of trouble playing with the controllers that actually come with the Switch. So I purchased a Pro controller last night on Amazon, and it will be arriving on Monday. So I'll be able to play with much more ease because Mega Man is very hard to play without a proper D-pad.
Yeah, the Pro controller is great. It's expensive, but it's worth it.
I got the
It's
Zelda.
actually
I got the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild one. Of course I did.
sweet. No, it's a good investment. You'll like it.
But that rounds us out for this month of video game history. Let's go ahead and talk about... That is some good 8-bit music right there. Love it. Metroid is, to kick off Metroid month, Metroid is an action-adventure video game developed and published by Nintendo, the first installment in the Metroid series. It was originally released in Japan for the Famicom Disk System peripheral in August 1986. North America received a release in August 1987 on the NES in a ROM cartridge format, with the European release following in January 1988. Set on the planet Zebes, the story follows Samus Aran as she attempts to retrieve the parasitic Metroid organisms that were stolen by space pirates who plan to replicate the Metroids by exposing them to beta raids and then use them as biological weapons to destroy Samus and all who oppose them. It was produced by Gunpei Yokoi, directed by Satoru Okada and Masao Yamamoto, and scored by Hirokazu Tanaka, who just is probably one of the best NES, like 8-bit era composers at the time. I mean, he just knocked it out of the park with Metroid. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't have music that fits a game more perfectly than the music does in Metroid. I wanted to ask you, Derek, did you ever play Metroid originally back in the day?
The original Metroid, no. My introduction to this franchise was briefly playing Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo. And then from there, I went back and I played Metroid 2 for the Game Boy. I didn't play the original one until years later. I actually don't remember when the first time I played the original Metroid was.
This was actually one of the very few games that I actually finished on the Nintendo when I was a kid. And it was rough to finish this game. And that was one thing I wanted to talk about with this game is I've been playing it for the last couple of weeks on and off. I really played it pretty hardcore last night when I finally got to sit down. I'm having really a good time playing it because I am using a walkthrough, which I found at gravelstudios.com. I'm looking at it right here. It's a pretty good walkthrough. I've gotten lost a good bit. But yeah, if you go there to gravelstudios.com, you can use a walkthrough. And I would recommend, if you haven't ever played Metroid before, if you're a kid and you're playing Metroid and you have all the time in the world to explore, that's the fun of the game when you were a kid, is having all that time to just explore, because it's not a linear game. You know, it's a platformer, but it's not, you know, it's not straightforward like Super Mario Brothers or anything. There's a lot of exploration that goes with this game, and
you can get lost very easily.
Very easily. This game is so huge. I forgot how huge this game is. Especially when I would kind of stray from the walkthrough and get lost very, very easily. Like last night, I was trying to get, there's 3 different zones. There's Norfair, Brinstar, and I'm trying to remember the name of the original place where you start, and I can't, let's see.
I'm looking it up.
Let's see, let me go to the main page here. Shoot, I missed. Never mind. But there's 3 different areas you go to, and there's 2 mini bosses that you have to get to before you can go to defeat the Mother Brain. There is Kraid and Ridley, who have, you know, been a staple of the Metroid series, especially like Ridley. I mean, that's a direct, you know, reference to Alien with Ridley Scott. So, and this game takes a lot from, you know, you could definitely tell this game was inspired by the Alien and Aliens movies, especially like the very end with the, after you defeat the Mother Brain and you have to escape the planet. Like you have a countdown that begins and you have to make the escape back up to the surface to your ship. And I remember as a kid, that was the most pulse pounding, like just hand shaking, palm sweating, trying to escape the planet before it explodes. And that is going to be burned in my memory until the day I die, is finally defeating the Mother Brain and escaping the planet. And probably one of the greatest video game moments of my life. I mean, even after that point, you know, I would go back and defeat the end of the game just using like the Justin Bailey code or the code that I had saved from defeating it originally. So, and that was a cool thing about this game. It's got a crazy code system, which was rough when you were a kid trying to make sure you wrote everything down correctly, because the password system is nuts in this game. But it's cool because you can pretty much, once you save it and get that passcode, you pretty much go right back to where you were. So that was the cool thing about it.
Yeah, it's going back and playing through the original Metroid, and again, I played through Super Metroid and the more advanced games before I went back and played the original. It's not as detailed and as good looking as the newer games, but the core of the gameplay is still there, and I think I think that says a lot about that franchise, is that spanning the games. Now, granted, when they went to Prime and made it first person, that was very different, but the core of the gameplay throughout all the 2D games is very much the same, but it's one of those that you don't feel like it gets old throughout the entire franchise.
It still holds up. I mean, just the whole look and feel of the game and the music and the gameplay. I mean, there's a lot that they could have done differently. Like, one of the things that bugged me about the original game is before you actually get the screw attack, which is one of the best power-ups in any game ever, is finally getting the screw attack.
Agreed.
Is not being able to like crouch down and shoot, because there are a lot of enemies that are crawling on the floor that you can't shoot because you can't bend down. So you either have to jump over them, and then sometimes you have enemies that are falling from the ceiling and you try to jump, and of course they're going to hit you, and it's just, sometimes you can get easily overwhelmed in this game. But the cool thing is now the game is on the Switch Online, so you have you can save at any point in the game. And that is so wonderful, especially with a game like this, because you're going to die a lot until you start to get your energy tanks filled up. And you start off with one energy tank, and of course, if you follow the walkthrough like I am, it shows you which energy tanks to get when, where they're at, how to get them. And that helps a lot once you start to get way more energy. And you also get the what's it called? There's another power. There's a lot of power ups you get in this game. Like you get the like I said, the screw attack. You get one, I think it's called the Varia, where it actually turns your armor pink, and that causes you to actually the damage you take is cut in half, and you get Ice Beam, which is pretty much the best weapon to use. I don't like to use any of the wave beams or anything like that, because being able to freeze enemies and jump on them and get to places you can't normally get to is way more it's way more useful than any of the other weapons that you can get. So, and once you get another weapon, like if you have the Ice Beam and then you get the Wave Beam, then you've got to go back to where you got the Ice Beam and get it again to change back. There's no way to kind of, I guess they just didn't have the memory or anything to be able to have multiple weapons. So if you lose one of those weapons, you got to go back and get it again, and which is kind of hard to do because this game is so freaking huge and you can get lost very, very easily.
Yeah. When you have you get the morph ball where you can crouch down and turn into a little ball and go through passages. You can lay down bombs, which I think you have to get that as a separate power up as well. Yeah.
Well, the morph ball is actually the very first thing you get in the game. Whatever you do, you beam down to the planet and you go to the left, and that's your morph ball. And once you do that, you can go through the tunnels, but then you can get your bombs, where while you're in the morph ball, you can leave bombs everywhere, which is very useful because in this game, there are a lot of walls that you can morph into, blast your way through, and be able to find the hidden areas in this game. And there are so many freaking hidden areas in this game to as shortcuts and to other power-ups and energy tanks and things like that. I mean, it's just the amount of like secrets in this game and things that you can do is just crazy to me. That's what I think makes this game just, it's going to be a great game forever. I don't think this game, it still holds up. I mean, yeah, it's 8-bit and it's for the Nintendo, but it's up there in one of the top, NES games, one of the best games of the 80s, one of the best Nintendo games you can get. If you don't have a copy of Metroid for your NES, if you have a Switch, just pay $20 a year and play it on Switch Online, because it's definitely 100% worth playing.
It's one of those franchises that when you think of the original NES, you think Mario, Zelda, and Metroid's right up there with it. And then, of course, the reveal of Samus being a woman when everyone thought that it was a male was a huge deal back then.
Yeah. And Metroid was the one game that I wanted. That's what I got an NES for. I mean, as soon as I got an NES, I remember going to Kmart with like $10 and putting Metroid on layaway and then doing chores and everything else to raise the money to get it out of layaway. And I could just remember being like, oh my God, it's so close. Like I could taste it. And I remember just bringing it home that day and just playing it like all night long. Like this game is just, it's definitely one of my best gaming memories as a kid, because I can still remember like being in the Kmart looking at Metroid going, oh my God, I can't wait to play this game. Must have it. But I mean,
I haven't heard the term layaway in forever.
Oh yeah. Do they even do layaway anymore? Especially Kmart.
I think Walmart brought it back for the holidays.
Yeah. And then the last Kmart just closed near 2 towns over. Like one of the last Kmarts in the country just closed down like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I remember Kmart. I got a lot of good games from Kmart.
Yeah, that's where I got a lot of NES games from Kmart. They used to have like the sale bin. That's where I got a lot of games, like say on sale for like $5-10. Man, birthday would roll around, get $20-30 in birthday money. I'd hit the sale bin at Kmart, buy a bunch of games.
No, absolutely.
But I mean, Metroid is there's not much I can say about it that hasn't already been said 1,000 times. But if you've never played any of the Metroid games, definitely go back to the beginning and see where it all started, because it's just, especially if you love science fiction and you love like the Aliens movies, like this is basically just Alien the movie. It's basically what it is.
Well, it is. I know we've made this point several times on this podcast. There are a lot of games that I think they would work better as a film or as a series. Metroid needs to be a live-action dark sci-fi film, like in the same mold of like Aliens.
Yeah,
I think that would be freaking great.
I think it'd be fantastic. I would even take an anime, like Castlevania.
Anime would be cool.
I'm okay with any of it because it's such a huge world. It is, but it isn't, because it's Samus the bounty hunter alone on a planet trying to survive, and and you're a bounty hunter. I mean, just everything outside of that, there's so much story that you could go into. Her getting to the planet, having to survive. I mean, I would watch an entire season of that. I don't know about you. But yeah, I mean, I don't know why they haven't made a movie out of it already. I mean, Samus is, one of the very first like video game female protagonists. Mm-hmm.
Well, I know Brie Larson, who's playing Captain Marvel, said that she wants to play Samus in a Metroid movie. So why not?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think she'd be great.
And as far as the music goes, Tanaka said right here, he said he wanted to make a score that made players feel like they were encountering a living organism and had no distinction between music and the sound effects. The only time a melodic theme is heard is when Mother Brain is defeated in order to give the victorious players catharsis. During the rest of the game, the melodies are more minimalistic because Tanaka wanted the soundtrack to be the opposite of the hummable pop tunes found in other games at the time, which is weird because, I still have this music in my brain from a kid. I heard it so much, but there's a lot of parts to this game where there isn't really any music. It just kind of goes quiet, and you're just hearing the sound effects of the games, and you're just hearing sort of like a doot, doot, like a beeping off in the distance or something, and it's unnerving.
Yeah. Which is funny because the song you played to kick off this segment is, to me, one of the most iconic themes of the NES era.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. They even said here.
It's just funny that he makes that point.
Video game scholar Andrew Schartman, what a name,
right?
Schartman, notes the possible influence of Jerry Goldsmith's Alien score on Tanaka's music, a hypothesis supported by Sakamoto's acknowledgement of Alien's influence on the game's development. As Schartman notes, much like Metroid, the movie owes some of its tensest moments to silence. Schartman further argues that Tanaka's emphasis on silence was revolutionary in video game composition. I'll say that too. Like the use of just the quiet moments in this game that just build tension wasn't done in any other game that I can think of at the time, at least.
No, and it's kind of goes the same with movies. It's when you hear just silence, and it just builds that tension to when the scare happens or when the moment of action happens. So it's really smart use of the lack of music.
But this is probably, like, as far as the original Nintendo goes, I think the use of music, other than I think some of the best uses or some of the best soundtracks on the NES are, of course, Metroid, Ninja Gaiden. Of course, Super Mario Brothers, because it's so iconic. But, those three games to me, like, there's a lot of other games with music that I like Double Dragon and stuff. But I think as far as building tension and mood, like, it doesn't get any better than Metroid. And bless you, sir. I see you
Thanks.
the sneeze there.
Yeah. Figured out my cough/sneeze button.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like I was saying, as far as building tension and just building mood and just atmosphere, it doesn't get any better than Metroid for the NES.
No, absolutely. And, it was fun going back and playing through the original one. I do wish that I had played it when I first played an NES. But it's still, like you said, the gameplay still holds up. So it's not like I'm playing a vastly inferior game compared to its sequels.
And I am going to finish it again as an adult, but I'm going to wait until I get my Pro Controller in before I finish playing it, because it is kind of hard playing it on the controllers that come with the Switch. So I'm going to wait on that. But I do need to go ahead and get started on Super Metroid, which I already played it a while back, but I need to get it fresh in my memory again.
That game's so good.
Oh my god, it's so good. If you haven't played any of the Metroid games, like, just go get yourself Metroid for the NES and Super Metroid for the Super Nintendo, and just have yourself a good weekend.
Exactly. No, and even it's been very brief, and I'm going to be playing definitely more this week, but next week, to continue Metroid month, I will be reviewing Metroid 2, The Return of Samus for the Game Boy.
Yes. I never got to play that. I'm interested to hear what your take on it.
Now, I'm excited, and when we came up with this idea, I was all for it, because going through these games again, it's going to be a lot of fun.
I'd love to go pick up a copy of Metroid Prime for the GameCube. I may do that this weekend.
Same. No, that's actually not a bad idea.
I think I'm going to do that. But it says here in 2006, Nintendo Power ranked Metroid as the 11th best game on its list of the top 200 games on a Nintendo video game console. 2 years later, the magazine also named Metroid the 5th best game for the NES in its best of the best feature, describing it as a combination of Super Mario Brothers platforming and Legend of Zelda's exploration and character upgrades. Let's see, on the top 100 games list, it was ranked 69th by Electronic Gaming Monthly, 6th by Game Informer, 7th in 2009 by Game Informer. It also put Metroid 7th on their list of the top 200 games of all time, saying that it started the concept of open exploration in games. I'll give it that. Games Radar ranked it 5th best NES game ever made. And wow, that's high praise, which I would say that.
I would agree with that as well.
Entertainment Weekly picked it as the 18th greatest game available in 1991. High scores all around for this game. Personally, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's hard to give a game a perfect 10, so I'm going to give Metroid a good solid 9.5.
I think that's deserving. It still holds up all these years later, and it started an iconic franchise. So,
because don't get me wrong, there's a lot of games that we've played for this show, and there's a lot of games that I'll play that I loved as a kid, but just don't hold up as I've gotten older. A lot of games that I'll play, and I just kind of get bored after a while. But Metroid just holds your attention like crazy.
No, I completely agree.
But that's all I have to say about it. Go play Metroid, especially if you have a Nintendo Switch. And I know I've said that a lot because I want Wally to drink. And go get your $20 a year Switch Online and go play it right now.
Absolutely.
So that's it.
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited to review Metroid 2 because I haven't played it in... this is the first time I played it in several years since it was originally available for the Game Boy. So, but I will save my thoughts on that for next week.
Fantastic. So, is there anything else you want to throw out there? Tell everybody about the Derek Diamond experience.
Yes. So the show officially came back last week, but will be under the new format starting this upcoming week with rolled out new logo this past week. Going to have new music, focus solely on talking with those who work in the film and TV industry. So I've gotten a lot of really great interviews so far, so I'm excited for everyone to hear those. One I actually did last night that I'll be releasing next month is with someone named AJ Caruso, who composed the score for Monsters and for Survey. So,
yes, he did.
Really cool guy. After we finished the interview, we talked for like another 20 or 30 minutes.
Oh,
so
we did the same.
Yeah, in total, we talked for close to 2 hours.
Yeah.
So it was really good. So if you want to follow the show on social media, it's on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at D Diamond Podcast.
Especially if you're if you're interested in just music in general. Or learning what it takes to score movies or films or anything like that, this is definitely one interview you want to listen to. So go follow Derek over at the Derek Diamond Experience and check out that episode.
Yeah, that'll be released sometime in early to mid-February.
Fantastic! I can't wait.
Got a while to wait, but it's a good one.
I don't have much going on. Just go follow me over at JFunktastic on Twitter. And if I'm feeling froggy, I might actually stream to Twitch me playing Metroid, Super Metroid, in the coming weeks. So
nice.
If you want to do that, I may kick up my Twitch channel again now that I have lots more free time.
Cool.
So that's it. Let me go ahead and play our music here. If you would like to email us, you can email us at nerdcaveretro@gmail.com. We are at nerdcaveretro.com. We're on Instagram and Twitter at nerdcaveretro, and individually at jfunktastic and at Derek_Diamond. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/nerdcaveretro. We're on Patreon at patreon.com/nerdcaveretro. And also, if you would be so kind, please leave us a review wherever you download this podcast from. So Derek, please tell them what it's all about.
Wow.
monkey!
All right. So everybody that was watching on Twitch, thank you very much, and we will see you guys next week. Goodbye.